surprise in Arizona. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 2000. Yes, we have reached a huge milestone of 2000 consecutive days of live podcasts. We started this journey on the 1st of August 2019, and today is day 2000. So we are going from day 1 to 2000. Thank you for the memories. We're going to talk about some of the memories that have come up over the last few days as I've been kind of sort of thinking about this in the back of my head. I've kind of been like, oh, what should we talk about tonight? What can we talk about tonight? What genealogy subject can we do tonight? But then I thought, well, hang on, we've got 2000 coming up at some point. And so I thought, maybe we should look back at some of the memories. And I was thinking back on some of the things, the places we've been, the things we've seen, the stuff we've done, the adventures we've had along the way. There's been ups and there's been downs. You guys have been along for the whole ride, all the way through, the ups, the downs, the roundabouts, the fun times. But we have had some fun times. And so I was like, what can we talk about? And then I kind of got lost in thinking about this. And then I suddenly looked at the time and went, oh crap, I'm late. So here we are. I apologize. But day one was the first day we traveled with my mom and dad. We started a 27-day journey and we covered 3,227 miles in 27 days. I am not doing that again. I will tell you right here, right now, I am not doing that again. I learned so much about myself on that. It was the first road trip in Sparkles, which was for those that don't know who Sparkles is a 2006 Fleetwood Bounder 32W, so Class A, 32 feet long. It was a special 20th anniversary edition of the RV. She came to me with 20-something thousand miles on it. We put on just over 12,000 miles in the time that we have had her. I still have her. She's up for sale right now. But we lived in that thing for 4.5 years. We had an awesome time in there. We finally moved out of Sparkles in May of 2023. So we're coming up to 2 years in this house, and we're in the process of selling Sparkles right now. So Sparkles is up on the market. It was a great ride in that vehicle, I have to tell you. Never gave me any real problems and stuff that I could get. And any major issues I had, like when I had to replace both AC units in 2 different years, the electrical stair thingy went out on us on our 3,227 mile trip. We're getting ready to go up the first of the hills to get from Temecula to where our campground was in Escondido. And all of a sudden, I pulled out of the right lane to get into the left lane to overtake a truck as we're barreling along the hill. And all of a sudden, my driver's side wing mirror goes pop, and it's just dangling by wires. So I had to put on the brakes, get in behind this truck and get over onto the shoulder. And then my dad took the little step stool to get out. Then goes and gets on the step stool and duct tapes it into place right there on the side of the road. We only had 20 minutes to get to the campground we were going to. So, but that September when I took it, I found a really cool RV repair place in San Diego, and they were awesome. Sparkles got service there 3 or 4 times. Regular oil change, our fluids were all done there, changed there. When we had to get the ace, when I went in September of after that trip with mum and dad, I went in to get the steps replaced, to get the mirror fixed. We had to replace the back AC by that point because it had gone. And unfortunately, with those types of ACs in the RV, you can't recharge the Freon or whatever it is that they use. You actually have to replace the entire thing, all done under extended warranty. I had extended warranty on this, Good Sam's extended warranty, and it was awesome. It paid for most of that. And they actually have a guy there at what's the name of the place? Sunsets. I think they were called. No, I've got their sticker on the inside of the door frame on my RV, so I always remember where I had to go. But they took great care. They were only about a 10-minute drive from the campground I was staying in. So I would close up everything and then, and this was before I got Zephy, and then drive over there, leave them with them, get a lift back to the campground. They had a common area where I would go and sit and do some work in the main building, the main office building till Sparkles was ready. There was no, that first time they had to actually keep her for 2 or 3 days to get parts in. And so I had to go and stay at the hotel that was right next to the campground. It wasn't a bad hotel, but I didn't have a vehicle, so I couldn't go anywhere. And so we got to stay there while everything got done on that. And they went through and did all the fluids and everything else. But yeah, and when I went to pick up Sparkles, the guy knew that it was my first time owning an RV, the service manager, and he had Sparkles sitting in their secured parking area across the road from their service garage. And so he went over there with me, and he walked me through on things that should have been done, that I should have been told what to do with my RV when I first picked it up. So he knew I just done this major road trip in it for the very first time, and I wasn't sure about how some things operated and stuff. So he actually walked me step by step on how to do things, about running the ACs. He says, always keep the fan. He says, with the ACs, always keep the fan on. He said, because there's no insulation between the roof and where the vents are throughout the vehicle. And he said, there's just no insulation there. So he says, if you have a unit turn off, and then you want to start it up again to heat down, he says, now it's got to cool not only the vents, but also the roof to cool everything down. So these were valuable lessons that you needed to know. And it showed me how to change the filters in them, which was super, super easy. When he said that, I says, that's it. He goes, yeah. I says, oh, I can do that. But to have it on, he says, and even when he says on your hottest day, he says your ACs will flip backwards and forwards as to which one is operating at the time. What we discovered was that one of the temperature sensors, there was the slide, when the slide moved out, the living room slide on the driver's side, when that was pushed out, there was a mirror there, and then there was also, the mirror was there at the back of the living room area, living room, kitchen, driving area. And you'd go in this little short hallway, all of 4 feet of it, and into the bedroom. And so where this wall was with the mirror on it, there was this little white thing, and it's sort of a weird shaped thing. And I go, what's this for? And he goes, oh, that's the temperature sensor. He said, so when it senses that it's hot, that's when it gets to a certain temperature. That's when I'll put the thing on. And I looked up, and sorry, my tiara almost fell off. I looked up, and the vent for the cold air to come down was coming straight down on top of that sensor. And I said, well, that's a stupid setup. And he looks at it and he goes, yeah. He says, that shouldn't be sitting anywhere near that. So my front AC unit very rarely came on, because it always thought that it was at the right temperature, because the front AC was up near the driver's area. The back AC was right above the refrigerator. So I had the fridge freezer here. I had the dining table across from that. I had this wall here that was basically the back of the bathroom wall, and beside the refrigerator is the shower. And so then you're into that little small hallway area, and the AC unit is right there at the entrance to that little 4-foot hallway. And that's the bedroom AC unit. Their sensor is actually in the bedroom at the end of the 4-foot. I don't even think it was 4 feet. Might have been 3. At the end of the hallway, the sensor was there below the thermostat. And so the back one was on more than the front one was, because the back one kept registering that it wasn't cool enough in the bedroom. The front one kept registering that it was too cold. So there were times that I kind of had to fudge the thermostat. You could see if this thermostat gets to this temperature, if this thermostat's at this temperature. So I had to kind of monitor the temperature to see what the back one was getting it down to know what temperature I had to put the front one at. So the front one would turn on and do its cooling thing. So that was one of my challenges in the RV was that. Another challenge was learning to drive a 32-foot vehicle, basically a 32-foot bus. And little did I know when we first went on our first adventures is that the maps program on your phone is for cars. It is not for RVs. So when we finally got to Vegas, we left San Diego and drove straight through to Vegas. We got there, we got set up, beautiful campground. We didn't have a lot of time. We only had the one night there before we moved on. We were going from Las Vegas to Moab in Utah. And if you want to know where Moab is in Utah, it's in the lower southeast corner of Utah, not far from the border into, I'm trying to remember what state's next door. Yeah, it's down in that bottom southeast corner. And it's near where Arches National Park is and Canyonlands, I think it's called. It's right, Moab's right there. It's the town that services those two national parks. So according to my phone, when we put the address in for Moab, it was going to take us 6 hours to get there. And that didn't allow for breaks. It didn't allow for the fact that I would not be driving the speeds that cars were driving. We discovered on our trip that when we went between 55 and 50 and 55, my steering wheel was going and the whole vehicle was going. So we're driving down the road and it felt like we were on a really bumpy road. Turned out the wheels need aligning. That got done in September. We actually replaced the two front wheels in September because they were gone. They were basically at the point that they needed to be replaced because they were elliptical in shape, not round, which was interesting. And causing a lot of the issues. So then we went, the place we went to get the service place told us the place to go to get the alignment done. The alignment then says you need two new front wheels. They then called this other place where I had to then drive the RV over to the other place. He says, don't get them to balance it or do anything, just get them to put the front wheels on. So I did that. But what I didn't know is that they actually balanced them at the same time. Putting the little lid weights on. Then I took them back to the place where they would do the alignment and stuff, and they worked on doing the alignment. They had to remove the balance thing so they could do all the balancing, the alignment, and everything else. While they were doing that, we discovered that they had one of those steady bar thingy mabobs, which help with sometimes when you're driving an RV, the back end will swing out a little bit, and this stabilizer thingy across the back axle area helps you do that. I actually got to... This is the coolest thing. They actually had it up on a jack up on one of those automobile RV lifts. And so we're in the service bay. We're sitting on these stools looking at the underside of my RV. And he goes, right, see that across the back there? I go, yeah. He goes, this is a blah, 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 blah. And I went, oh, what does that do? And he says it stops you doing this back motion, especially when you're going around corners. It will stabilize you going around corners. And in winds, it helps stabilize a little bit as well with the winds. And I'm like, oh, I've been reading about those and was thinking of putting one of those on. I don't need to do that now, do I? And he says, no. But it was up high enough that we're sitting on these stools and he's able to point. He had a little laser pointer. He's able to point with this little laser thing, all that stuff on the underside that I needed to know where it was, which was really cool. It was actually quite cool looking at the underside of the RV. So we had those sorts of adventures getting stuff done. And so for the month of October, my parents left at the end of August. They came in August. We started the podcast on the 1st of August. Then we did all the servicing stuff in September because come October 1st, I was heading to Arizona. But I've never been to Arizona before. And there's a couple of places I wanted to go to. So I thought, well, let's go and have a look and see what we can do while we're down there. And we ended up being there for 6 weeks, I think it was. Yeah, because we came back in November in time for Thanksgiving. And so I went down and I stayed at this really cool KOA campground that was attached to Lazy Days in Tucson, Arizona. They actually had a gate that went from the RV park into Lazy Days. If you don't know what Lazy Days is, let me tell you, this is the echelon of RVs for RV sales. They actually started when Brad and I first heard about them. We were going down to Tampa and someone said, oh, you got to go to Lazy Days. You got to go to Lazy Days. And so we were down there for an extra couple of days. So we went to Lazy Days, and Lazy Days was this massive, and I mean massive, RV sales yard. It was massive. They had their own campground where you could spend the night in your new RV learning about it and everything else. And I'll talk about that in a second because I actually got to see the Lazy Day people doing this, that we had been told this is what they do. We were at the point where we were just looking at that time. We weren't planning on buying anything at that time. We were just looking, browsing, seeing what our options were and seeing what we liked, what we didn't like. They drove us around the complex in a golf cart because it would have taken too long to walk. And we did an hour-long tour in the golf cart. We didn't even get out and look at any RVs. He just took us to where all the RVs were. They had, these are all the Class A RVs that are used. These are all the brand new Class A RVs. These are all the Class Cs over here, used and new. And here's this. And so they had the new ones and the used ones separated. They had all of these service bays there at Lazy Days. that, this is the Winnebago. These ones are for Winnebagos, and we only have technicians working on them who are certified for Winnebagos. Here's Fleetwood. We only have technicians in there working on those for the Fleetwood ones. And then they would rattle us through the different things. And their technicians were only certified to work on a particular make of RV, which I thought that's a brilliant idea. So when you got there, you knew that the technician knew how to work your vehicle and everything else. Then he takes us past these bays, and they were really weird setups, and I was trying to figure them out. And they had like these, they looked like RV sites, but they had these like little concrete bits in between them. And I'm going, what the? And he goes, oh, this is for transfer. And I go, transfer? He goes, yeah. He says, if you're trading your RV in, we will back your RV into this place. Hang on, I've got to remember this, how this works. Yeah, we back your RV in. Then we drive your new RV in, so the doors are opposite each other, and they park them so one's driven in one way and one's driven in the other way. Then they park them so the doors are opposite each other. So you just come down your steps across this concrete thing and up the steps into your new RV. And they had it set up for Class A's, Class C's, Class B's. Actually, Class B's weren't very big. There were some Class B's around. Fifth wheels, camper trailers, they had them all set up for all of those sorts of things where you could they had this transfer platform that they would park the RVs on each side so you could easily transfer your stuff across. I thought that's brilliant. So they had this campground there as well, and they would do the Lazy Day family reunions where if you bought a vehicle from RV from Lazy Day, you could come in on their annual rally and just hang out there. They also had inside the main store, building where all the salespeople were and everything else. They had sales in there. They had finance in there. They had everything set up in there. They even had a cafeteria in there. And if you were there during certain times, you got breakfast and lunch fed to you. It didn't cost you anything. And then so after we'd spent like 2 hours with the sales guy, and he was just getting to know us, the sort of things that we were looking for and everything else, and done this tour for us, we then worked out kind of the age of the vehicle we wanted to go with. We wanted to start looking at the used vehicle. And so he went and dropped us off in that area where all the RVs were in that age range that we wanted to have a look at. He says, when you're finished, he says, see that little hut over there? He says, there's toilets in there. There's tables and chairs in there. There's a couch in there. There's a water cooler in there. There's a phone there. He said, here's my card with my extension on. When you're ready, when you've done with the section, just call me. We're like, okay. And he says, and there'll be a beverage cart coming around. And they had a golf cart decked out where the driver was sitting in the front of it, and they had all this beverages, almost any type of beverage on the back. He had hot, cold, alcoholic, non-alcoholic things there, and they would come around, and they'd also had a basket of snacks on there as well. And so when and at one point I said to Braces, I got to go to the bathroom. And so it's like, okay, so we left, and we were going in and out of RVs. We're getting ideas on things that we liked, what we didn't like, layouts that we liked, layouts we didn't like, what was wrong with this layout, what was wrong with that. Well, it'd be good if this layout was over there with this piece on it. So we were comparing things as well. But one of the challenges we had was because of Brad's height being 6'5", we had to make sure that anything that we looked at, he would fit in the shower. And he wouldn't have to bend over in half to get wet. So it was really cool when some of the showers had like a skylight on top because it gave him extra height in there. But some of them were still a little too short. So that was one of the things we had to look at. Do we have a shower that he would be able to fit in? So we decided to take a break and go over to the hut and use the restroom and stuff. And when we came out of there, the drinks cart comes around the corner, and he stops. We get our drinks from there, and he says, I'll have some snacks. He says, I'll take some snacks too. And he says, then you might want to go inside and sit and wait. He said, we're about to get a thunderstorm through. It'll last all of 10 minutes, and then you'll be good to go again. But he says, you might, just go in there, rest for about 10 minutes. The thunderstorm will come through here, and then you can come out and everything will dry off. And we're like, okay. So we went and sat in there. While we're sitting there, we started hearing the thunder. It was and apparently in this area of Florida, they have the thunderstorms at the same time every day. You could literally set your clock by them. And so we sat in there for the 10 minutes, and it was 10 minutes long. But it was such a great experience. Now, when I was at KOA in Tucson at the one attached to Lazy Days, this one in Tucson is really cool. They actually have these covered RV slots, and they've got beautiful concrete pads there. That is your patio area, and the nice wide patio areas too. So you've got a place to put your rig, You got the concrete patio, and then you have a driveway to park you have an area to park your car if you are towing. Sorry, I got an itchy roof of my mouth again. And it was, and the covers are all solar panels on top that help provide the power to your vehicle. They have covered and uncovered. And so I got one in the covered area. And then next to, and this is my first time coming to this particular camp. So I get there, I'm getting everything hooked up. This woman stops and she looks at me and she looks all around and she goes, "Did you just arrive?" I went, "Yes." And she says, "And you drove this?" And I went, "Yeah," like thinking it's no big deal. And she goes, "You are so brave." And I went, "Okay." I'm like, how do you respond to something like that? I have no clue. And so she was telling me that, I was so brave to be driving this huge vehicle. It was a 32-foot Class A by myself. And she says, "Well, how far have you traveled in that?" I said, "Well, I said in August, I traveled 3,227 miles in 27 days. And she went, "You did what?" And I said, "Yeah, I learned the lesson on that one. Have longer breaks between when I'm going to be doing those sorts of distance. Have at least a 2-night stay somewhere instead of a 1-night stay." Because we did lots of 1-night stays. It was very exhausting mentally and physically. But yeah, and so the site next to me was actually empty. But then this fifth wheel got parked there. And these people got out of the vehicle. There was the service guy from Lazy Days, and there was this couple. And the service guy from Lazy Days showed them how to back well, actually, these were pull-throughs, which was nice. But he also not only showed them how to use it as a pull-through, and a pull-through is you come in from the back of the site and drive up towards the front of the site. And we actually stayed in one where we had 60-foot long. It was a 60-foot long pull-through site. My thing looked so tiny in that thing. It was 60 feet long. I'm like, really? And they were 20 feet wide spaces, which was really cool. But anyway, that was when we were by the Field of Dreams. And I called it the Field of Dreams because it reminded me of the movie Field of Dreams. And there was this big corn thing, if you build it, they will come. There was a big corn crop across from us. But and I had Zeffy at that point. But anyway, back to Tucson. And so this guy from a couple had just bought this fifth wheel RV. And it was the first time they had owned a fifth wheel. So he spent 2 hours. 2 hours. I got 40 minutes on a Class A. They got 2 hours on a fifth wheel on how everything operated. He showed that he brought them through the pull through. Then he went beyond it and then showed them how you back up in the fifth wheel. Helped them get it all and had them drive it as well, doing the pull. They had to go out, come around, come through the pull through, go all the way through. And the RV part slot across from them was open. So they had to drive into that. And then they had to back up into the one that they were actually going to be staying in. They both had to do it to show the guy that they could do it. And he talked them through the whole thing. Then he showed them how to unhook the fifth wheel from their truck, which they had also just bought so they could tow a fifth wheel. And then showed them how to put the feet down and get it all level and everything else, get everything hooked up. And then he spent the rest of the time going over every inch of that fifth wheel with them, showing them all the tips and the tricks and the switches and the buttons and everything else, and what operates this, what operates that, and how to empty their tanks, and how you have to do the black tank first and then you do the gray tank, because the gray tank then flushes everything that's in the pipes from the black tank. And the black tank is your toilet one. Your gray water is from the showers and the washing the dishes, anything that you do in a hand basin or a sink. And so showing them all of that, took them through the steps of how to open the different things. He had them go through it as well. I just got talked to the entire time. And when I asked a question on something, they would give me a blank look. And afterwards, I thought about that. And I thought that blank look they gave me was sort of like, well, what do you want us to do about it? They weren't going to offer anything to be fixed or anything. They wanted me to turn around and say, well, can you fix this? Can you fix this, or can you do this? I didn't know to do that. But this guy took them through everything. He even had their manual out and was showing them where in the book to find it. He was making notes in the margins for them. It was a thorough, and I'm just sort of like, dang. And I was kicking myself because when Brad and I went through Lazy Days near Tampa, we always said if we'd ever buy an RV, we would go there and do that. And I thought, well, I could actually fly out there with like a sleeping bag and basic, utensils and stuff like that. Just thinking of the basics I would have to fly out there with, and then I could drive it back. I don't know why I never did that. I don't know why. I guess I was just too anxious to get into an RV. I should have spent the time to go there because I already knew what their system was like because I'd been through that. Oh, and another thing that they did at Lazy Days, they teach you how to drive your RV. Doesn't matter what size it is, they teach you how to drive it. You actually have a guy standing here with his head on, literally on your shoulder, so he can see what you're seeing and telling you what you need to be doing, when you need to be looking at your mirrors, looking at your mirrors and all that sort of stuff, and looking at your controls and going through what all the controls do and everything else. So not only do they, and that's if you purchase from them, you can do that for free. If you didn't purchase from them, it will cost you, they charge you to go through their driving school, which is, I was like, I'm happy to do that. I never did get to do that. But the other thing they do is they teach you how to cook in your RV, because RV cooking can be very different from at home. You have these, in my one, I had these gas burners. Only on one of them could I control the flame. The other two, the flames were on or they were off, nothing in between. But this one, I had one burner that you could adjust. I had a microwave in there. I don't like microwaves. I don't use microwaves except to be pantries. But I could have at some point switched it out to be a convection oven / microwave and just use the convection oven side. So they actually have cooking classes teaching you how to use the convection oven / microwave to prepare meals and everything else. So, they've come such a long way. And now they have places in, there's actually one just down the road here from me. Here in Phoenix, there's one down in Tucson, which I already knew about that one. I think Denver, they've got one up in, I think Denver's the other place they've got one. Trying to remember where else I've seen them. There's two in Arizona, one in Colorado, which is in Denver. And I can't remember if they've got any other, but these are like little satellites, and I've seen them and I'm like, wow, they are nowhere near the amount of land that the one in Tampa has. That one's just huge. It's huge. But then what happens with once the mechanic's been over everything with them is that he leaves them with the RV, with the manuals and everything else. They get to stay the night in their vehicle. They do this in Tampa. They've got they've got some sites down there that they have reserved for those that have purchased an RV, and you actually get to spend the night in your RV at their campground for free, testing everything out. So you've been walked through your RV. Now you get to live in it for a night and test it all out. And they tell you push buttons and flip switches and do all of that. Here's your manual, go through everything. We know we've crammed a lot of information into, because he was out, I heard him outside telling them this as he was getting ready to walk back to the RV place. And he says, there's a lot of information we've had to cram into you in the last 2 hours. He says, go through everything again. If you have any questions, write them down. He says, I'll be back in the morning at this particular time, because they had to be out of the campground by 11 o'clock in the morning. And so he was then going to run them through the whole system again, help them get hooked up this time, walk them through the hookup. He had them walking through the hookup like 5 or 6 times. He would have them hook it up, practice hooking it up by themselves, practice hooking up with somebody helping drive him into the coupling. They had both of them do that. But he basically said, open and close everything, test everything out, push all the buttons and the dials and everything else that's in there. And he said, and write down any questions you have. And when I get back here at 8 o'clock in the morning, we're going to go through all of this. We're going to spend another couple hours together going through everything, getting you all hooked up so that you can then get on the road and everything else. And I was just sort of like, I'm listening to this because the windows were open. It was beautiful under this thing. And it was in September, so it was beautiful weather. And so I had the windows open. So I was hearing all of this as I'm sitting there working. But these guys were just so thorough. And I'm like sitting there, I'm kicking, and I thought, well, I really do like Sparkles, because Sparkles was a good size for me and drove really well. And since I'd had the tires balanced, it was even better. And I got those 2 front tires on new and all of that sort of thing. And she'd been going like a dream since she'd been serviced. And so I was like, I really do like Sparkles. I love the layout that she had. And look at that dog. Hey, sweetie girl. But I just love Sparkles. But I was still kicking myself about the fact that Brad and I had always said that when we buy an RV, we were going to go to Tampa to do it. And I'm kicking myself that I didn't do that. Yeah, so there was a lot of adventures we had in Sparkles. You guys came on all those adventures with us over the last 2,000 days. You came through all of those adventures. You learned about the highs, the lows. You heard about my meltdown that I had in my head that my parents didn't know about. I mean, I'm driving my parents and we're going from Vegas to Moab. And there's a lot of canyons. You go up the side of one, down the side, across the canyon floor, up the other side, across the top, down to the canyon floor, across the canyon floor. It was like never ending. My little marker on my Google Maps on my phone that was sitting down over here where I could see it, it wasn't moving. I'm like, how much further have I got to go? That time was not clicking off very quickly. So that was one of the things I put into one of the Facebook groups I belong to for the Fleetwood Bounder owners. And one of the guys turned around and says, he says, oh, you need to get the wizard, the RV wizard. He said, it is a program in there you put in the size of your vehicle, so the height, the length, and the width, and the weight of your vehicle. And you put that in there. You put in where, how far do you want to drive each day? Because when you do that, it then shows, it does this map. On the map, it does this big circle for the radius, and then it shows you all the campgrounds that are in close proximity to the edge of your driving distance. Or you put in the address of where you're going, and it will tell you in RV time how long it's going to take. He says, and when it comes to your average speed, he said, put in 43. 43? He says, yeah. He says, trust me, 43 is the magic number that you put in there. And he says, even if you're driving at 60, 65, 70 miles an hour, he said, the timing is going to be true because any other program doesn't. He said, these GPS programs do not allow you to have breaks. He said, so that when you put in 43, you're allowing for break time as well. Allowing to stop for a meal, you're allowing for a stop for a drink, a restroom stop, whatever. He says, you get to have your breaks. We started using that like the next day. We put that in there. We were actually there for 2 nights because we spent a day in Canyonlands. We actually got the lift down to the car rental place, got the rental car, drove back up to Canyonlands, and we had the car for the day. We had a fantastic time there. We dropped it back when we were supposed to drop it back, got a lift driver back to the campground, packed up the RV and left. Because we actually had the car for 24 hours. And my parents did not believe me about the amount of water we had to take with us because this was August. It was hot. But I would tell you this: we now knew what our drive times were when we plugged in. Here we are now, and this is where we go. This is the campground because we had everything booked. This is the campground we're going to, and it would tell us exactly to the minute on how far we had to go and how long it was going to take us to get there. This is where I also learned as well is that stopping for an overnight when you're doing these long drives to get from point A to point B, not a good idea. Have a minimum of 2 nights so you have a day in between to recover physically and mentally, because that driving up the top of the canyon, down into the canyon, up the canyon, down the canyon, doing this for hours. It took us 12 hours to get from Vegas to Moab to get to the campground. We actually drove past the campground because we had to go get groceries. And so we got groceries, came back to the campground, and we were setting up in the campground as the sun was setting over the hills. In the distance, we got these great photos of the sunset as well. We almost had to do a setup, hooking up all the pipes and the electricity and stuff with flashlights. But power was the first thing that got hooked on. And then Mum took over the kitchen and got dinner ready and everything else. But yeah, during that 12-hour drive, I'm like, oh my God, another canyon. And I'm like, I am so fed up with these canyons. Yes, the vistas are great, but after like the third one, I was like, oh, another canyon. Oh, another canyon. And this battle's going on in my head. It's like, I can't do this. I can't deal with this. I'm just going to pull over the side of the road and walk away. And then I'm like, crap, my parents are with me. I can't do that. I've got to keep going. And so it was this big mental game of getting over the fact that we're going through another canyon. We're going up another canyon. We're coming down another canyon. Oh my God, we've got another canyon to go up and down. There was this constant mental battle going on in my head. And of course, I'm looking for places that I can pull over, take a break and everything else. My dad was my navigator. Mum decided she didn't want to sit in the passenger seat. So she sat behind me on the couch, and my dad sat in the thing, and he had on the dashboard there. I tell you, Fleetwood Bounders have very deep dashboards, which are amazing because Mrs. Fleetwood Bounder the wife of the owner of the company Fleetwood Bounder was actually designed by women, and of the wife of the company founder was the one who designed the Bounder, and she loved to sew. So she wanted surfaces that she could sew on, and she wanted outlets everywhere. You want power outlets. You're sitting in the passenger seat. There's a two plug outlet down there at your feet. Then you go just behind you. There's a two plug outlet on the underside of the cabinet, right behind the passenger seat. Then across over beside the couch, there's one up above the couch, right behind the driver's seat, under the cabinets. Then you go down to where the dining area is. There was two outlets down in the footwell of the dining booth. There was two outlets in the kitchen. In the bathroom, there was two. I'm talking these outlets are double outlets, okay? Just a normal regular double outlets that you get in the house. So there was two of those in the bathroom, two in the kitchen, one in the dining area, and one over here on the wall. That was the wall for the bathroom that got covered. Oh, no, actually, that one actually got left open when the slide was closed. There was in the bedroom, there was one on each side of the bed, and then there was one on the one on the vanity, one behind the TV. And the one behind the TV, you had to flip the switch over here to operate it, which I found out by trial and error because they didn't tell me about that because that plug was done. I think that was all of them. Oh, then there was the other ones in the outside as well that were in the lockers underneath too. If you had to be outside with whatever and needed a regular power outlet, there were those in the lockers as well. So just inside the RV, we had 1, 2, 3. Oh, there's one behind the chair. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. In a 32-foot vehicle, I had 14 power outlets, just regular household power outlets. 14. It was insane. It was insane. And some of them I didn't even know were there. And it wasn't until I was like laying down on the couch and I looked up and went, there's a power outlet up there. That's how I discovered the one that's under the cabinets right behind the driver's seat was because I slept on the couch while Mum and Dad got the bed. And I was laying there and I looked up and went, there's a power outlet up there. Huh, look at that. Yeah, there's a long here under the cabinet. Nope, that's the only one on this cabinet. And then I sort of looked across, and that's when I saw the one that was under the cabinet above the chair. There's also one down behind the chair, and then there was one in front of, because they had the passenger seat here. Then they had a swivel chair here that had a table that could pop up here. So you had a power outlet up here underneath the cabinet, one behind the chair, and then down at the foot of the passenger's well. 3. It was insane. It was insane. But they all got used. Although I had a GFI one in the kitchen and a GFI one in the bathroom. And I don't remember which one operated which outlets. I just knew if one of them popped, I just went and reset it again and we were good to go. And if I didn't know which one to reset, I just reset both. But yeah, we had a lot of great adventures. We covered a lot of miles. We did just over 12,000 miles from when I picked up Sparkles to when I put her into storage. And Zeffie has driven just over 6,000 of those miles with me. So we had a great life on the road. And I'll tell you, she was the best traveling. She's the best traveling companion. We would go to leave, and she would sit there in the passenger's seat, all buckled in. And her harness she'd have a harness on, and she'd have a buckle that would go to the seat buckle. And with that, she could, in her harness, she could not jump onto the dashboard, which she tried a couple of times. Found out it didn't reach. That was her favorite place to lay. She wanted to lay up there while I was driving. I was like, absolutely not. Down between the chairs, we had what they call the doghouse, which is the hump in the middle there if you're doing gas thing. And it has a piece that you can actually remove so you can check the oil because it has a very long oil stick. It was very and I didn't realize you had to remove that to go. I'm like out the engine there, and I'm like bending this thing to get it out there, wondering when it was ever going to end. No, you actually have to undo the screws. You lift it up, and now you've got direct access to some of the place for the oil changes and stuff like that, or to top up the oil. That's where you do it. So this doghouse was there, and so I had a bed for Zeffie that would sit between the seats. And once we had left the thing, she would sit in the passenger seat, and she'd just sort of like recline back against it, looking like, I am the queen of this vehicle. And she would just like look around, and she would whine because we're doing 10 miles an hour. And when we arrived at the campground and we're doing our 10 miles an hour, she was allowed up on the dashboard, but now she had to be buckled into her seat, and she was not happy. And as soon as we got out on the road and sped up, she just sort of like relaxed, not a sound, and just watched. Then after she'd watched for a little bit, she'd just jump off the seat, down onto the floor, curl up on her bed and sleep. And she would put her head on the doghouse, which got very warm because it was right above the engine. But she would sleep with her head over towards my side, so I could just sit there while I was driving in this beautiful, comfortable, almost like an easy chair. And I could just reach down and just scratch her head while I was driving. And that's why she put her head on the engine piece, so she could get her scratches. And then we'll get to rest areas, and it was really cool because I didn't have to go into the restrooms. I had my own with me, which was nice. If we wanted to eat, we could eat. If I wanted to sleep, I could sleep. That was one of the requirements of the RV, is the bed had to be accessible while we were driving. A lot of them would have it where you would have to fold the bed up so that you could put the slides in. I said, no. I said, if I pull into a rest area and I want to sleep, I want to be able to get on the bed. I lost about 6 inches off the foot of the bed. It's a queen size bed. Lost about 6 inches off the foot of the bed because it was tucked in underneath the closet, which was perfectly fine with me because it left me the rest of the space. And there were times that we took our little naps. We had our naps and then got back on the road again. And we always had, and I'd always pre-prepared food ahead of time. If I was doing sandwiches, I just made them up whenever we had a break. But sometimes I would pre-cook meals and have them in the refrigerator ready. And there were meals I could eat cold, so I didn't have to worry about heating them up because I had no power at the time when you're in a rest area. And we would get out and go stretch out. And we'd always park in the trucker's place because it's the only place we could park. There were some that actually had, there was one, where was it? There was one rest area we went through. It was one of the welcome centers. I want to say it was Alabama, but I don't think that was right. But you went in, and I didn't know about this to start with. So we went in, we parked in the truckers area. We went for a wander around so Zeffie could do her thing, and I could stretch my legs and stuff. We got back into the RV and had our snacks and all of that sort of thing, and got all cleaned up, got ready and got back on and got ready to go back on the road. We pulled out of the truckers thing. We went to the left because this one went to the left, went around, come around this corner. There were RV places that you could actually park your RV. They had these little bays, and they had an island. There was the road piece. There was the road piece to go out. There was a little island here, and you pull in on the sides of the island. And they had these RV bays, and you could sit there and park. And some people had actually parked their fifth wheel there and taken the truck for a drive into the nearest town. And I was like, that is brilliant. Why did I not know about this first? Because I would have gone and sat there rather than in the truckers area and having to look out for trucks and stuff. And they had these nice big deep open spaces where I could quite easily walk Zeffie around and not have to even go near the road. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. So I thought I must mark that off for next time. I think it's Alabama. We were heading along the 10. I want to say it was Alabama. But, we found we found really cool rest areas. We pulled into one because I desperately needed a bathroom break. All the truckers were being sent into this, all the truckers we had gone across the state line, and all truckers were being diverted into the rest area. And I'm like, dang, I have to go. So I get caught up in this wave of truckers going into this rest area. What it was, all the state troopers for this particular state that we were entering were there. They were checking every single truck. They were checking all of their paperwork. They were checking the driver's logs. Was the bill of lading, whatever it is that says this is what we're carrying. Did it match what was in the truck? They were doing this whole blitz on truckers. And I pull up, and this very nice officer, he says to me, he looks, and I says, I need to use the restroom and I need to walk my dog. He says, just go park over there. And he says, when you're ready to leave, he says, just pull out and go. And I went, thank you very much. And so we had this, and we watched all this stuff going on with the truck. And like the truck would be pull into a, they'd put these movable barriers down down between the lanes. And then as soon as a truck pulled in, a cop car would pull in behind him. And so he couldn't back up, and he didn't have enough space to move until the barrier was moved for him to be able to drive off. So they had it set up very, very well. And yeah, they were just blitzing. They were pulling in every truck. And they had troopers out on the highway patrol guys out there. So if a truck did not turn off, they were pulled over on the side of the road. Yeah, they were pulling in every single trucker. Okay, I've been here long enough. I could tell you story after story after story after story of all the adventures that we've had in the 4.5 years that we were inside, that we were in Sparkles. There were a lot of them. We went to some amazing places. We stayed at some incredible campgrounds. And we found some that were really crappy, and we're never going to stay in them again. They've already got the black mark. I actually have a logbook of every campground we've stayed in, and this logbook allows you to rate every campground. So if you're going, it's sort of like, yeah, we're not going to this one. And I would have in big red letters, not staying again, or avoid, or stuff like this written on them. But yeah, we had a lot of fun, and traveling with her was amazing. She was a great traveling companion. She really was. And yeah. And just to be able to leave her in the RV and go do some shopping. And we always did shopping. We did shopping either as we left a town, or when we arrived in a town before we got to the campground, because we didn't have a vehicle at the time. So we either shopped before we got to the campground, or we shopped after we left the campground, based on where the market was. And we typically went to Walmart, because they also have a lot of RV supplies there, which were at cheaper prices than if you went to the RV stores. And of course they're everywhere. So if you found out that you were out of the little chemical pods that you put into your toilet tank to help break everything down, then they had them there, and they had them a lot cheaper than the RV stores had them. So Walmart for RVers, awesome. You just park at the back of the parking lot, and a lot of Walmarts will allow you to stay in the parking lot overnight, as long as you don't look like you're camping there, like you're staying. Like, you can't put the feet down, you can't put the slides out. You can't set the barbecue up outside. A lot of people had those little hibachi grills, but some of them were that were gas operated things. Yeah. So you weren't allowed to look like you were camping when you stayed in the parking areas. So I don't know if they still allow that or not. Most of them you've got to check with the managers to make sure that it's okay for you to stay overnight there, as long as you don't look like you're staying there. But yeah, Walmart is the RVer's friend. But they did have a very good RV section. And you can get replacement hoses and all sorts of stuff. So, but I have to go. It's that time. Ziffy's she's hoping to get some food tonight. She's been living the last 2 days on quinoa and pumpkin to help get her stomach settled, and it looks like it's finally there. And so she got a little bit of food this morning. She's had a little bit of food already, but now we're off to give her meds. And she might get a treat tonight too. We'll see. But she has been literally when we go to the kitchen here, she gets her nose down on the floor, and she's sniffing like every single inch. Is there a speck of food on the floor? Is there is some of my kibble spilled over somewhere and gone? And she's been moving boxes around just to get to that one kibble, because she was so hungry. And so I gave her a little bit of food, and you can see how she is. Anyway, with that, we are out of here. Thank you for following us for the last 2,000 days. We've got more stuff coming up. It's been an awesome ride. I mean, 2,000 days. That's 5 and a bit years. What does that break down to? I don't know. I just know it's day 2,000. That's all I know. I don't know how many. I know it's 5 years, several months, and a few days. That's all I can tell you. Let's see, 1st of August, so 30, 31. Yeah, I'd have to add those up. My brain's just not in that capacity right now. But go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening. Thank you for joining us on 2,000 Days of Memories, and just being with us along for this ride. If some of you have been, if you've seen some of our episodes and things, please put in the comment what some of your favorite moments were. And because we've been through some rough times and stuff, and you guys have been with me through it all, and I can't say thank you enough. But I truly appreciate you guys tuning in, listening to our tales, our woes, our discoveries, our, and through the changes that we have gone. I've been through Helen's Great Adventures, which was the first part when we were actually on the road all the time, to switching it to Before the Dirt Nap, where we're incorporating travel and genealogy and living your best life now. And we've been concentrating more on the genealogy side recently. So thank you for being with us through all the changes and everything else. And let us know in the comments what your favorite story was over the last 5 and a bit years, over the last 2,000 days. What's your favorite stories? What were your favorite episodes? And we will catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hei konara.